Welcome back to another high-level match of StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a best-of-3 series that's one of the two semi-finals of this week's ESL Open Cup for the European region. Now, in case you're unfamiliar, this is one of the most competitive weekly events that we have in StarCraft 2, and I guess the easiest proof that I can give to you is that none of the South Korean pros ever really decide to sign up. And that's mostly because of guys like, for example, Clem and MaxPax that play in practically every single one of them. Every once in a while, we have players like, for example, Raynor also signing up, and it's just very difficult to win this particular tournament. That's why it's interesting to me that spawning right here in game number 1 on a map called Hard Lit, in the top left-hand corner, with the red Protoss pieces, we're looking not inside of the main base of MaxPax, but we're looking at none other than Krystianer's main nexus. Now, Krystianer is a player who I have been following for quite a couple years at this point, but I don't actually know if I've ever featured him before on my YouTube channel. I'll give you a little bit more information on him in just a moment. First off, his opponent in the opposite corner, playing with the blue Zerg drones, a man who really doesn't require any additional introduction because he's one of Europe's greatest Zergs and I've casted many of his games. We're looking at none other than Lambo's main hatchery. Alrighty, so Krystianer. He's a player who has been competing for a very long time. He plays in a ton of online cups. He has always been very strong, but I feel like recently he stepped it up just a little bit. Generally speaking, there's players that win tournaments regularly, and then you have players right below that level that, yeah, do very well. They make it to like the round of 16, round of 8, maybe a round of 4, but that's kind of where they taper off a little bit. And that's not me being disrespectful. It's just really hard to win StarCraft tournaments because there are some really good players out there that you do have to beat in order to obtain the victory. So Krystianer is currently sitting at right about 6.5k MMR, which is right around the same MMR as, for example, players like Mana, Harstem, Gongfu Banda. I think Trigger is right about right there as well. Then I would say as far as like the ranking of non-Korean Protoss players go, I would say that Skillis is right above that. Then we have like Astrea and Showtime. And then, you know, the king of non-Korean Protoss players is definitely MaxPax. Now, speaking of MaxPax, Krystianer was certainly feeling good on the day that this particular match was played. So that's earlier this week. If you're watching this, I guess in the week that this video goes live. He was certainly feeling good because in the quarterfinals of this week's ESL Open Cup, he took down MaxPax. Now, MaxPax's Protoss versus Protoss is phenomenal. So the fact that Krystianer managed to take down MaxPax really speaks volumes. Now, you may be wondering, Loko, why aren't you casting that series between Krystianer and MaxPax instead? And that's because that's a Protoss versus Protoss. And whenever I upload a Protoss versus Protoss to my YouTube channel, it gets like half of the amount of views as literally any other matchup. I personally really like PvP, but there's no denying that the viewer numbers. Maybe I'll actually, if this semifinals rather ends up being a short one, I may very well also cast the Protoss versus Protoss in this video. Maybe I can trick you guys into enjoying some Protoss versus Protoss as well, because it really is a killer matchup. But yeah. Anyways, Krystianer certainly has been looking solid, and all right, he decides to shade into the main base right over here. Trying to launch those adepts right here in between wherever he can. All right, ultimately, that's only a single worker going down right there for 2 adepts, and that is not really the start that you're hoping for right here as a Protoss player. Now, Lambo, of course, has been really good for a long time. I mean, I feel like I say this every single time I cast a Lambo game, but yeah, Lambo has been one of the best European Zergs for years. 1 drone, 2 drones, 3. Okay, not bad. Don't lose the... Okay. Don't lose the Oracle. He's been one of the very best European Zergs for years, but he does get overshadowed a bit, like, by players like, for example, Raynor, like, for example, Serral, right? Because they end up winning, like, 80% of the premier tournaments out there. It's difficult to make a name for yourself if you don't win a similar amount. Now, this build right here from Krystianer is an interesting one. Generally speaking, one of the reasons why we see that Oracle Adept shenanigans is because you can kill drones and then at the same time also take a 3rd Nexus right around 3 minutes and 45 seconds or so, but that's not what he's doing. Instead, he's decided to go for a Robo Facility. Now, this is definitely something that those Zerglings have seen. Robo Facility? Ah, Templar Archives. Interesting. So he went for a Twilight Council as well. I kind of figured this would maybe be like a Glyphed Adept follow-up, but I guess we're gonna be going into some High Templar and then probably some Archon drops. This does mean that the 3rd Nexus will be planted down. but it's certainly a little bit later than with an ordinary Stargate opener. So you slow down your own economy a little bit. I mean, he's still been making workers, so the fact that you're still making probes here means that you're gonna be oversaturated. Yeah, well, at the very least, if you have the probes mining your natural expansion or your main, it would be oversaturated. Instead, we're long distance mining the third. So worker-wise, it's not like Krystianer is very far behind here, but it is certainly a little bit different. Now, maybe these Archons can make up the difference in the economy loss here, because they can certainly pack a punch. 2 more Adepts over here end up getting surrounded. Not quite optimal. Don't lose the Prism, of course. Losing the Prism here is essentially game ending. Stasis Ward in the main base, but very nice reactions here so far by Lambo. Perfect. That was lovely work. Roaches are coming up as well, so Zerglings obviously not particularly great against Archons. And one of the things that a lot of Zerg players have been messing around with over the last few weeks, ever since the new multiplayer balance patch, is to skip the Roach Warren altogether. And if you do skip the Roach Warren, these builds that we're seeing right here are incredibly tricky to deal with. Going straight Hydra. Something that maybe somebody like Lambo wouldn't do. Lambo has been very vocal for many years that he doesn't really love the Hydralisk. Maybe that's not really something Lambo would do, but it certainly would be very strong against a Roach Warren skip. Not happening though in this particular game. Okay, so ultimately, is this a fantastic start here for Protoss? Not really, but it's also not bad, right? He still has a decent economy, and any damage that he deals right now is gonna be a nice bonus. The real question is, what is the follow-up going to be? So we have Immortals getting chronoed out already. Charge is coming up. We've got the +1 ground weapons here as well for the Protoss units, okay. Whereas in the meantime, on the other side of the map, Lambo is going a Roach, a Ravager, and then good old Ling Bane, it seems. But with the reduction of the strength of the Baneling, not a lot of Zerg players are very fond of going for melee upgrades anymore. So instead, they've been focusing on the missile upgrade. So the big change that Zerg players have to deal with now is that probes will no longer get one-shot by a +2 meleeed Baneling. So right now they've reduced the damage a little bit to the point where Banelings will take 2 hits to kill a probe regardless. So it's not really worth getting those melee upgrades as often anymore. But obviously, yeah, the melee upgrades are fantastic as well for Zerglings, right? And Zerglings with Adrenal Glands, they certainly pack a punch. But recently, we've been seeing a lot of missile upgrades instead, and usually that leads towards a bit of a different unit composition. Now, I kind of figured... There's a Spire here. I kind of figured Lambo to be going maybe for some more Lurker play here instead, but he's got a hidden Spire that has currently been unscouted. Storm is coming up as well here for Krystianer, though, and this is all lining up to be a pretty killer timing attack. He's already got so many Immortals. I don't know if Lambo is aware of the fact that there are so many Immortals already available. Mutas are fantastic at harassment, but they're really not that great when it comes to, well, killing army units, right? If there's gonna be Archons in the mix, I mean, Storm is gonna finish up in just a couple seconds. Krystianer may have a golden opportunity to go across the map right about right now and deal a tremendous amount of damage before those Mutas really start hurting him. The question is, does Lambo have enough units here himself to really properly shut this down? Baneling speed is certainly not gonna be done. 2 more Immortals are coming. He's got a window here, but it is closing. Okay. Yeah, I think the problem here for Krystianer is that he hasn't actually seen the Spire. So he has those hallucinated Phoenixes flying around, or he had those hallucinated Phoenixes flying around earlier. But yeah, they didn't see the Spire, which actually is a little bit sloppy. Not knowing exactly what you're playing against is a bit frustrating, for sure. 41 Banelings coming up. Okay, well, you can still blow up mineral lines. Absolutely. You should not be engaging, though, before Bane speed is done. Okay, well, this is not going to achieve anything now. Whoa, that was expensive, Lambo. That is a significant blunder. I mean, he's got the resources here to make up for it pretty quickly, but that was a lot of free units right there. I mean, a little bit of infrastructure ended up going down, but those Banelings, they're... I know a lot of Protoss players and Terran players out there like to think that they're free, but they're actually pretty pricey, man. 50 minerals, 25 gas each. Now we have a melee upgrade coming up together with a Hive. So, Krystianer late on the 3rd base, but now also late on the 4th. I would imagine that that means we have to go for a big attack. Yeah, I think this is ultimately all just leaning. I guess we can still call it a timing attack. Looks like we have a little bit of a contamination right there on the forge. It's a timing attack with essentially 200 supply. So it's a late timing and not really... Normally what we call timing attacks in StarCraft 2 are upgrade-based timings, right? So you finish up one of your upgrades, preferably 2 or 3 at the same time, and then you go for a big push. Look at the amount of units, my god. There are 10 Immortals in the mix. So we had the Spire build, but no Mutas at all, which I really don't like very much. Okay, Lambo's setting up a big surround. He wants to try and see if he can hit this army from multiple angles. If he can get Banelings on top of all of those Templar, that would be amazing. But there are so many Immortals in the mix. I mean, this Archon probably should be on the left side, but that's mostly just me nitpicking. Krystianer absolutely crushes all of those units. Easy peasy. Alright, so we have a greater Spire coming up. Lambo clearly decided to pivot away from making like a round of Mutas here. Maybe he thought he got spotted, which may very well be the case. Like, he saw like 3 hallucinated Phoenixes flying around, so maybe he made the assumption that he was spotted and therefore he never bothered making Mutas, because there should be defense. I mean, apparently we made some blind defense here, at least in some of those mineral lines. One Zergling here is gonna have a hard time cleaning all of this up. Greater Spire, though, is gonna be amazing, right? Once again, though, for now, yeah, this Protoss army has to be addressed here by the Zerg with just Ravager, Ling Bane, and it's gonna try and collapse on top of this once again. Templar now without energy, so they do get blown up here eventually. Excellent Corrosive Balls here trying to zone this away, but nice pickup micro as well by Krystianer, keeping as many of these units alive. Another hatchery being tapped, and there it goes. It does end up falling. Now, Archon Immortal Zealot-based armies are amazing against Ground Zerg. They're absolutely atrocious. Okay, we're gonna recall. I actually don't mind that move, as long as we can keep most of those Immortals alive. Yeah, 4 of them ended up falling, which, considering we still have 8 left over, is certainly most. The problem is, this army here from Protoss is atrocious against Brute Lords. So despite the fact that things aren't looking all too hot right here for Lambo, he does still have a lot of workers. He's at 71. He can remake those hatcheries relatively easily. If he can bring like 6 to 10 Brute Lords out onto the battlefield, he's gonna absolutely destroy this Protoss army. If Archons get underneath, sure, that's when Brute Lords can go down, right? If Stalkers manage to blink forward, I guess that's an option. We do have blink done, but it's all very fishy. Generally speaking, the way you counter this sort of army as Protoss is to have some heavy hitters that fly yourself. But there's a Stargate, but obviously that was only used for early game harassment. He hasn't quite put down, we're going into more Immortals, my god. We've got 10 Immortals already. We're going up to like 20 Immortals in this game at this rate, which, considering their name, maybe sounds like a great choice, but they're not actually that immortal. I don't think so, nope. Alright, where's the Brutes? There they are. How many do we have? It's 6. 6 is like amateur numbers, okay? We kind of need, I mean, okay, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not the greatest numbers. Yeah, you need to micro them. We have a couple more than that. You can kind of just stand there and fight. Obviously, you still prefer microing. 9 Stalkers are coming up. Okay, Krystianer is gonna go deep here. He's gonna try and dive all of these Zerg bases and just deal as much damage as possible. He doesn't even start up any sort of production for flying units either. He's just doing a little bit of a drive-by over here onto that hatchery. The Immortals looked at it twice, they shot once, and it immediately got destroyed. I think Lambo's read over here is correct, though. Just keep adding on more and more Brutes. Yeah. Oh, don't lose him. Don't lose him. This is not the best spot for them to be, I don't think. Targeting a High Templar. Nice picking right there by Lambo. Ooh. Do those Stalkers blink forward into Lings and Banes? I mean, they're trying. Here we go. We do not have Adrenal Glands on the Zerglings, but they do have +2 melee, so they certainly do pack a punch. Okay, another aggressive blink forward over here, tapping as many of those Brutes as possible. Looks like he warped in the perfect amount of Stalkers there to one-shot those Brute Lords, and ultimately quite a few of them have gone down. The Immortal Archon Ball is just moving forward, the Prism constantly warping in more and more Stalker reinforcements. Krystianer now forcing himself to go all in. Again, not a decision we would see from most other Protoss players out there. It's a very ballsy move, but I think it is indeed the correct one in this particular scenario. There's just not enough available anymore for Lambo to shut down the amount of stuff that Protoss can produce. 27 drones have gone down. You know what? Not every Immortal is immortal in StarCraft, but these seem pretty darn close to it, except for the guy in the front. Yeah, sorry about that, but GG is cold. And Krystianer obtains the victory in game number 1. Excellent game right there from Krystianer. So what exactly did he do differently in that first game of this best of 3 series compared to other highly ranked Protosses? Generally speaking, Protoss build orders are almost set in stone. So we will see the 3rd base as well as the 4th base at very strict timings. Krystianer decided to go for different timings for, well, both of those structures, instead prioritizing tech. And then secondly, the amount of immortals he made in that game, I wonder if that's going to be a theme. I haven't really looked at any of his Protoss vs. Zerg games very closely recently. I wonder if that's something he will decide to do once again in this one. When you think about it though, Lambo certainly had an opportunity to deal a lot of damage with mutas in that game. But I really think he assumed that he was scouted. The only other option would be that he assumed he started up the Hive already, but I'm pretty sure he started up the Spire before an Infestation Pit. I would have picked up on the Infestation Pit, like 90% of my cast at the very least. I think I would have seen it, so I think he just assumed he was spotted, and therefore he's like, I guess I'll use the Spire right now to go into Brute Lord tech here eventually, but there certainly was opportunity for him to make like 8 mutas and deal damage on the other side of the map and maybe force that issue a little bit more. Because ultimately, well, when you have Immortals coming up 2 at a time against a roach-based army, eventually they will absolutely destroy that Zerg force. Alright, now I wasn't a fan of the early game Adept Micro, so maybe this game it will go a little bit better. Stargate start here once again though for Krystianer. So keep in mind, the regular timing for a 3rd base off of an Oracle opener, which is what we have over here, is about 345, 350, depending on the Protoss' execution as well as the map. Are we gonna commit? Nah. I agree. Not committing right there is certainly the right choice. Ultimately, keeping these Adepts alive is really handy for taking the 3rd, and maybe that's also the reason why he decided to delay the 3rd in the previous game. Since he lost those first 2 Adepts, it was difficult to defend against the Zergling counterattack. Normally a probe would be moving down to the location where the 3rd base goes, right about right now. Not the case, nope. Once again, we have ourselves a Twilight Council as well as a Robo facility. Here's the Oracle coming in. No Spore Crawler just yet. Probably could have had, oh my god, no! Oh, that is... Yeah, when you watch games of Hero and MaxPax all the time, right? They would not have misfired like 4 times there. That could have certainly been at least 1 more worker kill. One of the Zeps right there went onto the Queen and then 3 on 3 different drones. That is certainly not quite optimal, but 2 workers is not a bad beginning. I think more or less that's like a mental hit, you know? Protoss players hate it when that happens. Templar Archives, once again, so identical build here twice in a row. That does mean we're gonna be seeing a 3rd Nexus right about right now. This is something that Lambo will be scouting for. I don't think he saw the probe right there, so the probe just barely dodged the vision. Moving it closer to the mineral line there, so the Zerg does not find out exactly what they're playing against, although I can imagine that Lambo has a pretty decent understanding after losing to it in game number 1. Alright, so he's scouting here in the main base. What do you do differently this time around, Lambo? Well, he's looking around. He sees the Templar Archives. He doesn't see any research. He knows that this is going to be Archon drops 100% of the time. They look like Dark Archons, but no Dark Archons in StarCraft 2. That's a StarCraft 1 unit only. They look a little bit differently, but no mind control for these bad boys, okay? That'd be nuts. Immortals? I mean, yeah, we certainly saw you were fond of those. So what do you do differently this time around, Lambo? I honestly don't know. There's the Evolution Chamber starting up, so you can obviously go into mutas. A little bit risky, because if the opponent sniffs it out, you may just find yourself going up against a whole lot of Phoenixes, and they just... Ooh, don't lose the Prism. Okay. Yeah, a little bit risky. If you get scouted, then suddenly the mutas can get nullified really hard. Another option would be to go into a Hive a little bit quicker. You could go into Brute Lords once again. You can go into Swarm Host too. Certainly an option. It's something that I have done many times myself, but it's not a very popular build on the at the pro level. I think it's very good on the ladder. because nobody really plays Swarm Host, and therefore there's not a lot of practice against Swarm Hosts. Oh, yep, there we go. Okay, cool. So we rarely see Swarm Hosts at this level of play. Normally, they do go hand in hand with Nidus Worms as well. So if Lambo really wants to make me look good, he should put down a Nidus Worm as well in just a moment's time. But this does mean that there's no fourth base here for the Zerg just yet. One of the big downsides of Swarm Host play, and one of the reasons why we don't see them very frequently, is that they soak up too much supply. So it's really hard to have like an 80 worker economy and Swarm Host at the same time, because you just end up with too much supply caught up in Swarm Host. So the Swarm Host obviously can activate their Locust ability, which is very powerful. However, yeah, they're going to be on cooldown for a good long while. And in the meantime, the Swarm Host is very vulnerable. So if you only have an army based around Swarm Host, you can't really win the game. You really need something to back up as well, meaning that you have to have supply caught up in like Lingbane or Roach Ravager with Swarm Host, right? But then you can't really afford having a big economy on the back of it. So it's a big trade-off that you have to make, which I personally really like, actually. I think it's one of the coolest units in StarCraft, but I think a Nidus Worm is almost mandatory. This is so awkward, man. We're just wandering around the map a little bit. Like, the macro here from Lambo has been on point. The creep threat looked really solid as well before. We just saw a couple of those things going down. Krystianer's gonna see the Swarm Host right now. I don't really like what Lambo's doing here, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I mean, this first wave is gonna at most get a Stargate. That's not really a structure that Krystianer is gonna be too worried about. So your hope almost, right, as a Zerg player against Swarm Host, is that the opponent decides to freak out and counterattack. So if you can fight him on creep, that makes the game a ton easier. Not the case here for now, at least. Usually against Swarm Host, Protoss armies that are about 100 to like 110 or so army supply big. Oh, we had apparently a warp in on the other side of the map, killing what seems to be 2 queens, maybe even a third. Not bad whatsoever. Usually once Protoss goes up to like 110-ish army supply, so you can see that over here, it's currently at 74. That's when they counter Swarm Host a lot more effectively. But Lambo really not using these units to their utmost potential at all. You really want to be on top of the cooldowns of these units, and you want to be able to send them around the map. Because this is another wasted Locust wave. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe it's going to kill a Warp Gate, if that. This killed nothing other than a Zealot or 2. I really like the counterattack damage here by Krystianer, though. Doing an excellent job microing. And now we're at that weird point as a Swarm Host player, right? Where you're maxed out, but your army is kind of weak. So it's 34 Roaches and 11 Swarm Hosts, but that's it. Lurker Den is coming up. Hive is coming up too. So there is going to be a transition, but Krystianer sees this coming in from a mile away. He's got 7 of his beloved Immortals once again. As long as the Swarm Hosts are on cooldown, it looks like the Zealots have actually just now found that that group of them too. They're gonna activate the Locust Wave, so at least that's something. Maybe the Roaches can come in from the bottom, but no. They're already a little bit too far away. I think Lambo really just wants to use these Swarm Hosts as a stepping stone to get towards better units, but I'm fairly sure that looking back at this game, he regretted that decision quite a bit, because they have achieved very little. Excellent control right there by Krystianer, showing us as well why we rarely see Swarm Hosts. Although that really wasn't the most optimal use of those units whatsoever. Okay. You know what we need, Krystianer? We need an extra robo facility, dude. We need a second robo facility to, like, make Immortals. We need more. More Immortals. Good storms, though, once again. The margin for error for Zerg is not very big, and you can tell right here that Krystianer is all over this army. Excellent force fields, lovely storms as well. Not scared right there of that one spine crawler, and now the Immortal Archon Ball is once again just stutter stepping forward like it's Marines and Marauders. Lambo's supply still looking pretty good. Those corrosive biles aren't bad, but we're popping a couple of our Overlords as well if we're not careful. Hydra's joining in the fray, but there's just not enough stuff right there, and it's Krystianer who moved on to face Clem in the grand finals of this week's ESL Open Cup. You know what? I'm curious, what ended up going down in that series against MaxPax? So spawning right here in game number 1 of our second best of 3 of the day. In the top left-hand corner of a map called Golden Aura, we have Krystianer and his opponent, the number 1 Protoss player from Europe. We're looking at none other than MaxPax's main Nexus. MaxPax's Protoss versus Protoss is phenomenal, so really curious to see what ended up going down right here. I guess I'm like that sneaky parent, you know? I'm like grating broccoli into your potatoes just to try and get you to get a taste of Protoss versus Protoss. I know nobody wants to watch PvP, but still, I want to watch it because I like it a lot. It's an acquired taste. It certainly is. This is one of those matchups that can be absolutely a ton of fun, but it can also be over in just about a heartbeat if one player makes a sneaky little mistake. Anyhow, I've been casting a lot of Protoss versus Protoss actually, as part of the ESL regionals over the last couple of weeks. So they are currently ongoing, and there's a lot of Protoss players out there, a lot of PvPs. And it's interesting to me because the vast majority of them go for this opener right over here, with 2 gateways and then eventually a Cybercore as well. MaxPax is one of the very few Protoss players who seems to be able to make low ground expansions work. So he goes for the pylon over here into a gateway here too, even on maps that don't have a ramp. MaxPax is in general one of the... I mean, I can fanboy over MaxPax for ages, but he is one of the players who can make build orders that everybody else writes off. He can make them work. So the 4-gate blink opener, for example, he wins like 80% of his Protoss versus Terrans with a build that all of the other top-level Protoss players never really play anymore. This is another one of those, yeah, starts, I guess, as we do have a proxy pylon over here. This is another one of those build orders here from MaxPax that basically none of the other top-tier competitors go for. He is going for a Zealot, and if he sees this proxy over here, Cybercore is finishing up right now. It's gonna be a Robo facility. If he sees this, oh, he's looking around. If he sees this, Krystianer is in all sorts of trouble. Shutting down the Robo facility. Now, luckily here for Krystianer, he's going in the opposite direction. He's scouting for like a proxy Stargate up north instead. But if this would have been spotted, I think that's, well, as close to game over as possible. We do have a couple of those Stalkers now coming up too. Nexus here has started up on the low ground, and we do have a Stargate inside of the main base of MaxPax. But keep in mind, this is a single gateway right here for the Danish Protoss. Whereas Krystianer here has decided to go for 2. Now he sees it, so now he's, yeah, now he knows exactly what he's playing against. Can he still shut this down? Stalkers coming across the map. They should really be going across straight away. There we go. Yeah, that pylon is going to be in all sorts of trouble. A little bit late right there on the Immortal. If the Immortal comes out, this is going to be amazing for Krystianer. I've got a feeling, though, this pylon is in all sorts of trouble. I mean, I say that. That's gonna be very close. Oh, yeah, Zealot is gonna fall. No, I think he gets it. Yep. And this is kind of a disaster. I mean, this is an all-in right here by Krystianer. He now sees that his opponent has expended behind this too, or at the very least, he knows that the odds are pretty big. Oracle at this point is out. We have a Void Ray on the back of this. And this is what MaxPax does, man. He is phenomenal in this matchup. Not really skipping a beat there. Yeah. I mean, he scouted... Okay, well, he scouted in the wrong direction on accident, but he still handled that really nicely. Alrighty, game number 2. We find ourselves on the map Site Delta. By the way, does it bother you a lot that you already know the outcome for this series now? Because I guess it's pretty obvious. Personally, I don't really care that much. I mean, journey before destination. Absolutely. Life before death. Strength before weakness. Journey before destination. Anyways, it doesn't really bother me all too much, but yeah, I know that for some people, it is all about the outcome. I've actually seen that recently on a lot of Sero casts. There's like, maybe 2 or 3 people that like to comment this every single time. I would like to imagine they comment that while having a very smug smile on their face, but they're like, Lowko, I skipped ahead to the end of the video and I saw that Cyril won, and therefore I'm not gonna watch the video because it's boring, because he always wins. I think they have a very smug smile on their face whenever they post these sorts of comments. But anyways, it's always interesting to me because the outcome of a StarCraft match, I mean, it's nice, don't get me wrong. We can certainly draw conclusions from it, but journey before destination, always, right? Anyways. It's an interesting one. Once again, though, MaxPax has done the thing. And I think the thing is a lot better on a map like Side Delta because you have a ramp leading down from the natural expansion towards the low ground. Go ahead. Put down the Cybercore. I dare you. Do it. Okay, he did it. Krystianer proxying his second pylon on the other side of the map. This is just a Protoss versus Protoss classic. This is a haha, I tricked you now type of thing. So MaxPax is scouting around inside of his opponent's base and he's looking around. He's like, hey, there's a pylon missing. Where could it be? Previous game, he cheesed me. Could it be cheese once again? This is forcing MaxPax to scout at home at least. I mean, it's gonna be cheese. All right. I actually thought this was gonna be a just a randomly positioned pylon. We see that all the time in his matchup. Instead, it is gonna be a Stargate right over here. I mean, somewhat closer to the opponent's side of the map, but not by that much. This is not a location that Max is going to scout, and you know what? Maybe that's gonna work. It is a Stargate here defensively as well. The problem with this pylon over here is not ideal. I mean, it's good against the average build, but generally speaking, if it's like a proxy Oracle opener, you can shut it down pretty easily by going for like a shield battery right over there. Problem is that MaxPax does not have pylon power within that range, so I think the closest he can go is right about right over there. Probes can run, of course, so that would sort of work, but okay, first adept going across the map here as well. MaxPax trying to figure out what he's playing against. Stargate in red is done. Oracle is coming up. You can always save up multiple Oracles too. Then even with a shield battery, you're still going to be in a pretty nice spot. MaxPax decides to go for a defensive Void Ray, which I do quite like here. He has also gone for a defensive shield battery over at the front. And he's got a probe patrolling here in case a couple of those adepts decide to get a bit too adventurous. Alright, so he's looking around everywhere. MaxPax has checked out, well, like 80% of the map at this point, or at least 80% of the likely locations for cheese, but this is such an odd spot for it that Krystianer is going to be able to get away with this for now. So we're going to commit until the second Oracle is out. MaxPax has gone for a second Void Ray, because obviously from his point of view, he knows that his opponent was late at least on the expansion. He doesn't really know exactly what he's playing against, but whatever it is, he should have an economical lead. Okay, Void Ray is not positioned in the right place just yet, so how much damage can be done right here by these Oracles? Right now is going to be the moment where MaxPax sees them. He's going to have to handle his crisis properly. Probes get pulled, units go into the main base. 5 probes, 6 probes, 7 workers here in total. Maybe we can get even more though. Nah, good pool right there. Alright, so this is, I mean, it's a small lead. It's nothing all too significant. Nice warp in right there, although somehow, some way, that adept managed to slither away. How did she do that? Before she left the warp gate, she like greased herself up. Ay, ay, ay. That's amazing. WD-40 is one of the standard procedures in the Protoss arsenal. Oracles, once again, going back in. Void Ray sleeping on the job for just a moment, and this is some excellent control right here by Krystianer. He knows that these units are going to die eventually, or at least very likely will. Lovely. Gets the recall at least on one of the 2 Oracles, and yeah, with that 11 workers now going down, Krystianer finds himself with a small lead. Really nothing all too crazy. He's still gonna have to play this one out. The thing is, this may very well force MaxPax into an aggressive move that he normally would not want to make. How many gateways does he have? It's still just the 1. Yeah, he doesn't really have any upgrades, so there's not much he can do with this army of his, but he needs to try, right? Any damage he can do right now would be amazing. Blink is about halfway done right here for the red Protoss. Battery overcharge, or sorry, prismatic alignment, which is, I guess, the same as battery overcharge. Yeah, I don't like this move, though. It's not the same, by the way. Nah. Yeah, this is excellent. Lovely work right here by Krystianer. MaxPax marches towards the high ground. Blink or not, it doesn't really matter. Went behind, Dark Shrine. That is the age-old adage of the Protoss, and well, it certainly is something that can catch the Protoss player in red off guard. Keep in mind that this is not a build with any sort of detection. I mean, we may still have, yeah, if we would have still had that Oracle, we could have used that as a revelation tool. So Dark Templar are now gonna be do or die, I guess, here for Max. Lost too many units, and he's ready to put all of his eggs in one basket. I would love to see a defensive robo facility here for Krystianer. I don't think that would be a bad idea, because he must realize at this point that the situation is becoming very dire for Max. Aggressive blink though, straight over the wall. He's very decisive with his decisions, right? Which is nice. The Dark Shrine is coming. I mean, obviously with a Forge you can also make a Photon Cannon, so that's another way of getting detection. I think an Observer is a little bit nicer overall, but GG. MaxPax is not even going to be able to get any Dark Templar out. It's already game over. 3 games in a row. MaxPax again goes for the low ground expansion. It really is an interesting thing, though, to me that, yeah, he's the only one at this level who consistently does it and who seems to get a lot of success. And at the same time, in my mind at least, he's also the best PvP player in the world. So I'd imagine that everybody else is going to thoroughly test it, but I mean, they have, and they just never really found a lot of success with it. But MaxPax apparently, well, decides to go ahead and do it once more. Anyhow, Krystianer, a fan of the proxy apparently in this matchup. It's gonna be a proxy robo once again. I mean, it was on a razor's edge in game number 1. This is a relatively conservatively positioned one, but still aggressive, right? Conservative yet aggressive. That'll be the title of my autobiography one day. I don't know what that means, actually. No, never mind, never mind. Anyways, target opener here again for MaxiPaxi. So he's going to be able to get himself, well, I guess an Oracle. And then eventually also a Void Ray going. He's looking around and he will find the proxy. It's 2 Stalkers once more here for Krystianer. So 4 in total. Basically the same as in game number 1. Can the Probe maybe get a backup pylon? Yeah, there you go. Probe is also gonna start shooting some Zeppies. It's a you know, it's a small job, but it's honest work. And it's critical. Adept was moving around for a while there. Can we kill that pylon? I mean, I think we will, just like in game number 1. But this time around, there's a backup pylon. We're gonna do a backup to the backup pylon. We need a name for that. The backup. The backups? The backups backup. Yeah, that's what it is. The backups backup pylon. Anyways, Void Ray coming up right now. And now suddenly this is looking a little bit scarier here for MaxPax. Should still be manageable, but now the low ground here and the fact that there's no ramp makes this all a little bit dangerous, yeah. That Immortal is going to be able to just march straight forward. Normally it would need high ground vision, but it's going to be able to make short work right there of that shield battery. Void Ray now available. Okay, no cancel right there by MaxPax. He does cancel the second one. There's the battery. Oh, no, not the prismatic alignment. Dang it. I was trying to fix it in this particular game, and he does get the final shot in. That's the Void Ray down the drain. Still, though, not enough damage done here by Krystianer just yet. Okay, he's really driving this one home right now. He's turning this into a 4-gate all-in. MaxPax may breathe a sigh of relief here when he sees that these units have left. But he's not out of the water yet. If he decides to send some of these units of his towards the other side. So yeah, the Oracle apparently already went, but there's a shield battery there to try and push that back. That's what we saw earlier already. He's not really going to be able to do too much. If like the Void Ray goes across the map, that would be a disaster. Krystianer is going to add on one more Immortal. Or he's going to, well, stick with one Immortal here. And then go into a Prism as well as an Observer. Okay. So the Prism here has tons of potential. But keep in mind that Void Rays make very short work of War Prisms as well. Oracle just trying to put in some work and maybe force a Warp in or two on the other side of the map. Fair enough. Stasis Wards obviously are still a nuisance too, but yeah, at least the gateways over here are scouted, so MaxPax knows that this is going to be a complete all-in. Shield battery going up in the main base. Does MaxPax have enough units to really shut all of this down? He's still only on one gateway, he's still only on one Stargate, so he doesn't really have a lot of units that he can actually produce. Sure, having that second Nexus is nice, but he doesn't quite have the worker count for it yet either. Blink is done. Krystianer is ready. Does he have enough stuff? Is he gonna go into the main base? As long as the Void Rays are over here patrolling and shutting down any vision towards the high ground, he should be okay. Oracle is still around as well, did not get sniped, so a stasis ward can be used. That was a good snipe right there. Getting rid of that observer makes it much easier to shut down any potential blinks towards the main base. The Void Ray count is slowly growing. 29 probes right now for MaxPax. He really needs to stop making workers. Okay, just producing whatever he can. The Void Rays? Yeah, they want to be here so they can see the prism. Okay, Immortal going in. Can we get a force field? Can we get a force field? Can we get a force field? We can! Oh my god, beautiful move right there by Krystianer, blocking MaxPax out of his own main base and creating a full opportunity for all of those Stalkers to go in. That Void Ray does pop out eventually, but I've got a feeling it may just be the last one. So much damage being done. Aggressive blink forward once again. We have enough Stalkers to apparently one-shot Void Rays. The magic number, I don't know what it is, but it is certainly enough right here for the player in blue. I mean, that Immortal's still going to town as well. 10 confirmed kills right now. If we can do another warp in, there we go. I think that's going to seal the deal. Honestly, expertly played right there by Krystianer. Outmaneuvering and out-strategizing MaxPax here. Even though this was basically the same build as in game number 1, MaxPax couldn't handle it this time around.